Hey, so I thought I'd just do a quick video. So, the problem that you're coming up against here is, when you're editing the Elementor editor, even though this all just looks like a nice short page, it's nice and simple. In reality, of course, what you're actually loading up is, this page plus, sort of 3 separate sections, each with all of this content in it, and then going even further, within each, this is like sort of separate sections on your page as well. So, you're kind of loading up one page with, one section up the top, one section down the bottom, sort of 3, 4, 5, and then under lunch 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then under dinner 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So you're actually loading a page that, has something like 25 or 30 or 40 or however many it is, separate sections of content on the page, and the Elementor editor is just struggling with that. So what you really want to do is you want to break this up into separate templates. Now, you've got options on how you break it up. The obvious choice is just to break it up into 3 templates initially. So take this, save your lunch menu object, this entire menu as one template, dinner as one, and kids as one, and that'll dramatically collapse the amount of content that's being pulled into the editor initially, because what it'll do is, instead of having to load all of this content into the editor for editing, it will just take all 3 menus out of the page altogether, and when you click on lunch in the editor, you'll get a little button here that says edit the lunch menu, and it'll take you over to another page to do that, or edit the dinner menu, or edit the kids menu. I'll show you that in a minute, but that'll dramatically lighten it up. But if you find, sometimes I find, and this is not very often, but sometimes I find that even having broken it up and moved these main menus into templates, that even trying to load, say, just the lunch menu with all of this content in one page could even get really heavy and slow. And so sometimes I'll even break it up further and create a template for the small plates, a template for the carry-up, and a template for the your soup, So you could even go further in breaking it up and doing that to help the editor performance, but usually just, probably just these 3 is enough initially. So let me show you what I mean. So if we edit this menu here, now you've got to do this a little bit carefully because you've got to choose which elements you save as templates. And the reason I say you've got to do it a bit carefully is, the basic tabs object that you're working with assumes a certain structure. So if I click on this tabs object, then I get the tabs widget here. I'm looking at the structure menu on the right hand side. And then under here, it has the core tabs themselves. Now, obviously you can't take these out of the Elementor widget itself. It assumes you're going to have these tabs, here. But what you can do is you can make sure that the content inside each of these is in its own container, which you've done already. So this is already in its own container. And so this container inside here, not this one here, so I wouldn't go to lunch and save that as a template. I'd actually go to the template that's inside and I'd save that as a template. Same inside dinner. I wouldn't save the dinner tab itself, I would save the content that's inside it. And so, while you don't necessarily have to have a container within a container here, you could actually take all of this content here and move it up. It's actually helpful that you've done that because it supports this separation into templates. So let me show you how I'd do it. So what I'd do is I'd choose this container here, and I'd right click and I'd go save as a template, and I'd call it, menus lunch or something. So I'll just call it template, menu, lunch section or something like that, or lunch. Template menu lunch. And I'm not going to save it in cloud templates. That's a little elemental thing where you can share your templates across different websites. So I'm just saving it in the regular site templates. So template menu lunch is the name of the template. So I'm going to do that. Saves it as a template, puts it in here under template menu lunch down the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to close this now. And now I'm going to go up here to lunch again, and I'm going to delete this template. So I'm going to delete it. So that makes it empty. And then I'm going to go and grab the template widget and just drag it into there in the lunch area. And then I'm just going to go search for lunch, template menu lunch. And so that effectively puts it back into the page. But now, so if I go to dinner, I'm editing the content all directly on the page. But now if I go to lunch and I try to click into here, it just gives me this button here, and if I click on edit template, let me just publish this page momentarily. And now if I click on template, of course, it's going to open that up in a separate window to edit the content that's inside this template. So if I click on this, it opens up a new window, and then I'm just editing the content that is within the lunch tab now in a separate window. So it's no longer being edited inside the same place. So this is all done separately now. So I'll just close that. Okay, so let's do the same for dinner. So I'll go to dinner, container here, and I'm going to go save as template, and I'm going to go template, menu, dinner, site templates, save, close that. I'm going to find the template again here, so go to dinner, I'm going to delete it here. You've got to be careful, make sure you're deleting the right template. Delete, okay, template widget, drag it in. That's it, go and search in here in dinner. Done. Okay, so that's now in there. Let's do the same for kids. So go to template, kids here, I'm going to go right click, save as template, template, menu, kids, save. So all you've done is you've just kind of broken up the editing experience into different pages. So let's just go back here again, click on kids, click on this container, right click, delete, template widget, drag it in, go and pull in our template, kids, done. Okay, so now you've broken it up. And so now what you'll find now is the performance of this page when you're working in the editor is really fast, but of course all you're editing now is just the tabs here. You're not actually editing what's inside. What's inside here is controlled separately. Now, you know, you might consider that to be perhaps a little bit clunky because you've got to sort of do your editing in different places, but it solves this issue of the editor not performing beautifully. And we do this sometimes not only with tabs components where you've got this rather elaborate, you know, tabs within tabs, but we do it sometimes with mega menus as well for the same reason, in that, you know, if you've got a very big site that's got a really elaborate set of mega menus, you know, multiple mega menus attached, and they've got lots of tabs within them, etc., then things can get pretty, you know, sort of involved. There are some other considerations if you're doing this for mega menus around the linking behaviour of the tabs, but I think for this type of page we can just skip over that and ignore it. You know, you probably don't need to worry about any of that. Now you might want to go and do things like in here, you might want to go and get rid of your padding so that you don't have these gaps around the edge, or, you know, anyway, so you might need to think about that. Go into the dinner tab here and just remove the padding so you haven't got this little black gap around the edge. But, you know, you can play with that. That's all just formatting and layout stuff. But that's something that we do sometimes as well. All right, so that's how you do it. And then, as I said, if you wanted to go even further than that, you know, if you find that when you, for instance, click on the, you know, the lunch option here, and you click in here, and then it says, okay, edit this template, and you go over here, and, you know, you start working inside this lunch menu, and you're finding that the lunch menu is really crappy performance and slowing down really badly, then you could actually start breaking it up and save each of these as separate templates. So you could go into the tabs here and go, well, okay, for tab number 2, you know, I'm going to save the curry with rice as, you know, template, menu, lunch, curry, or something, you know, so you could do that, but I don't think, that's not where I'd start. I'd start by assuming you're going to be able to edit these, you know, by themselves, and it's not going to be too bad. And you've done the main change, which I'd recommend, which is just breaking this up into 3 different templates, and I think that'll just solve the problem for you. That's enough sort of restructuring for now. If you hit problems here, you could consider that in the future, but I don't think you'll need to. I think this should be okay, because it's effectively just a page with 1, 2, 3, 4. It's got about 8 sections or 9 sections on it, which is, I think, pretty manageable from an Elementor point of view. All right, I'll finish this video here and send it over so you can, you know, whether you probably don't need to do anything. I've done the main restructure now, but just so you're aware of how I did it and what I did and why I did it. Hopefully that's useful to you. All right, I'll finish this video here.